You know, I am so glad that I didn't camp last night. The wind howled a whole night. Would have been awful. Really, really, really glad I found myself comfort. I had a lovely dinner last night. Gee, the food was good there. Really, really good. So, heading north on the Salt Road. It's a bit like those roads in Europe where there's heavy snow, where there are those markers next to the road to indicate where the road is in the case of heavy snowfalls. It's exactly the same here. There are markers to indicate where the road runs in the cases of heavy wind, where the sand, of course, obliterates the road completely. I'm now going to try, this is a bit of a long shot. In 1984, 2 years after I bought my first four-wheel drive, I came up this road and looking for a place to camp outside of the Skeleton Coast National Park, to which we're heading now. I pulled off to go and find a place to camp on the beach, and I found a wreck. Now the bits of steel, parts of a crane, a few other bits and pieces were actually left high and dry. The coast had actually receded and they were left high and dry. Now imagine if I could stumble on them again. It was not in the days of GPSs, so I didn't take a GPS fix. I just remember it was not far south of the park boundary. I'm going to go and see if I can find it. Long shot. Worth a try. Alright. I've been looking on the GPS and I found something that might be of great use to us. I have loaded into the GPS Tracks for Africa. For those of you who don't know what Tracks for Africa is, basically it's a collection of people that travel throughout Southern Africa, submit their GPS logs, track data to a website called Tracks for Africa, and they have compiled this very impressive piece of data about the place where I think this shipwreck may be, and I found shipwreck unknown. So I'm going to say go to shipwreck unknown. Here's hoping it's the same shipwreck. This is the wreck of the Winston. I don't think it's the wreck. Pretty sure it's not the wreck. Then again, it could be, but I remember there were lots and lots of bits of cranes. Anyway, I'll have to look at the photographs to verify it, but this is not the one on the GPS. This is another one that was actually signposted, so I thought I'd come down and take a look anyway. The other one, still got to go further north. Alright, so the GPS says we go off the road here. It's not much of a track, but it's something. There are some areas here look a bit tricky traction wise. They look a bit soft. I must just tread carefully. I'm completely on my own. This is a bad sign, you see. When tracks do this into the ground, it's a bad sign. Oh, look at that. No, this is impossible. You know, I don't remember it being this far away from the main road, but then again, my memory's not that good, best of times. And I certainly didn't have to drive over difficult ground to get here. I remember it was quite sandy, it was quite hilly. There was a ridge that I had to drive over, and it was quite soft because of the sand. This is mud. But the good news is a track. I'll just take it easy. This reminds me of driving over the salt pans. Gotta be careful, I'm all on my own here. I can see the wreck ahead. I'm sure it's not like I remember. This one's much smaller, and besides, I remember the shoreline being quite rocky. Well, no, it's not the place that I stayed at in 1984. It's completely different. But this is an entire boat. A small one, mind you, but this is a shipwreck. Whenever I have done one of these solo expeditions, I find that after a few days, loneliness produces a kind of benign insanity. I never know when it's going to strike, but struck it has. Now you're being very silly. Now stop it. I said earlier that it was boring. Take it all back. Imagine somebody being wrecked ashore here. What would they think? Oh boy, we're saved. Oh, we got to land. Oh wow. Hold on a minute. Oh, they got to get back in the boat. The southern gate to the Skeleton Coast Park. My intention is to make a brief visit before I head east and then north again. And then a little bit east and then north, but more, and the first thing I see are jackal footprints that lead the way to an unsightly mess of tangled steel. This is the bird colony. I call it that because the signpost, the first word is gone, so I'll just call it the bird colony. I'm not sure why they call it the bird colony. It's not a bird for 1,000 miles. It's just a whole lot of rust, and I wonder what this place was. Maybe it was a bird colonizing factory. They brought birds in here, indoctrinated them, and let them go, and so colonizing birds. Well, you come up with a better idea. Okay, whoa, stop. Enough. Just before leaving home on this expedition, I travelled to England. I thought it would be a good idea to spend some time with, people. I also went to prepare for my forthcoming trip to the Okavango, to Cambridge and onto the River Cam to see if I could still pole a mokoro.
And we're going to sink now, because Dad's driving.
A mokoro in Botswana is a dugout canoe, in England it's a canoe.
Or one shove and he falls in.
I have never pushed a punt before, and it's a bit like a very heavy mokoro. I'm not finding it quite as easy as I thought I would, mainly because my family are making jokes. The experiment was a success. I'm ready to face the Okavango, but that's another 5 weeks away. Enormous fun.
That was so cool.
Right, this is where I'm going to leave the sea and the Skeleton Coast Park. Sea's over there. That road up there continues to a place called Terrace Bay, where there's a little lodge, and Tora Bay, and eventually Maui Bay, and eventually, in fact, then there's the road up there. You're not allowed there. You can't even get a permission to drive that road, and eventually reaches the Koneni with the border with Angola. Instead, I'm going to take what I think is going to be a far more interesting route, and that is that way, east. I'm not really sure what's ahead of me, but I'll be traveling east a bit and then north a bit on my way to the Koneni. My trip back in 1984 also took me through this part of Damaraland, and it's here that I remember getting stuck in the sand, and it's here that, for the very first time, I learnt how to use a winch. This absolutely exquisite place that I find myself in. Travelling along the main road, I saw a large signboard, Hoanib Lodge and Rest Camp, camping. I thought that looked good. Went in there, but disappointing. People, too many people, kids. Nice campsite, but nothing special. Then I passed the community campsite. Then I passed this. This is called Living Canyon Campsite. It's beautiful, but there's nobody around to take money from me. It's obviously a community campsite, but well, I decided, in fact, not to camp down at the river as nice as it was down there, because the attraction and appeal of hot water and a hot shower was a little bit stronger than the scenery. So I'm here at the community campsite where my donkey boiler has been lit. I'm going to go have a quick shower. Damaraland is a dry place. Rarely do any of its rivers flow, but the Hoanib is flowing quite strongly. It's such a wonderful thing to see, because only rarely do these rivers ever flow. And it bodes very, very well for my trip to Angola, because I understand that the rivers are flowing strongly, and of course we're going to be following them upstream to find the source of the Okavango. Amazing. Hello. Well, this is where my adventure really begins, because this is where it starts getting very, very remote. I've turned off from Sesfontein, I filled up with my fuel, I'm full of water. I'm now heading along the valley of the Hoanib River, and I've been told that this is where the desert elephants live. I've never seen them before, and I'm determined to find them.